Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am Kashif Kamran, and welcome to the Strategic Business Leader September 24 Webinars to Success. And this is the free edition. Now, when I'm conducting the webinar today, the SBL September 24 exams are just 10 days away. So my specific focus of this webinar is to spell out a strategy which a student should adopt for the last 10 days. What sort of a study planner, what sort of a study approach you should have with you for the next 10 days, which will improve the prospect of your excellence in the upcoming exam. Now, the most important thing which all of you need to do as soon as possible is to self-evaluate yourself, because each one will have a different answer to the self-evaluation. Where are you standing today in terms of your upcoming September 24 exam preparation? And you need to identify the gaps and you need to fill those gaps. Every student will have a different gaps, and you need to know how would you go about filling it, looking at the challenges and obstacles you have over the next 10 days. So self-evaluate yourself, because that will really help you formulate a very nice looking study strategy for the next 10 days. But you should have a study strategy for the next 10 days. So you're very focused, you are very determined, you are setting the short-term goals for every day, and you are meeting them ahead of your September 24 exams. You have 240 hours, and each of that counts. Each of them is very important. How would you go about utilizing it? Where will you be focusing on? What sort of things will you be focusing on over these next 240 hours? Definitely, the answer will come from the self-evaluation and the gaps which you will be identifying. I will be specifically spelling out the more important things which should be part of this 240 hours. Your focus has to be on past papers, and I'll be telling you which one. The technical articles, definitely, there are some very important one which I will be discussing with you. The mock exam, which ACCA has published for September 24, examiner reports, and definitely the pre-scene, which ACCA has already released for the September 24 exams. This is all part of your agenda for the next 10 days. Okay, just let's look at what is a study planner, which I would have adopted if I would have been in your place and I have exam 10 days away. First of all, I need to look at the past papers available on the ACCA practice platform, which are under the new time management. We know the new time management for SBL is 195 minutes, which is 3 hours and 15 minutes. And this was applicable from the September 2023 exams. So I will be looking for the papers which can give me the right time management. Number one, the March-June 24 paper. Number two, the December 23 paper. Number three, the September 23 paper, followed by 3 practice exams. Practice exam 1, practice exam 2, and practice exam 3. They're all available on the ACCA practice platform. 6 exams under the new time management, which is 195 minutes. Also, the mock will be added to it later. So mock will make a total of 7 papers. You have to implement the new time management, which is 195 minutes, which is plenty. 10 days, 7 papers, which includes mock, and you can excel on the time management. You can understand the time management for the new paper format since September 23. And you can do the best on the day of your real exam. I'll be discussing about the time management and reinforcing the time management again, because this is relatively a newer area and the students could have misunderstandings. Latest March-June 24 examiner report. And I'll be telling you why have I included this in my last 10 days focus areas. What is the benefit? What will you get out of it? I'll be coming to that later in my presentation. But that definitely has to be in my last 10 days, in my last 240 hours before exams. Building familiarity with the pre-scene case for September 24, which is around Diego. a transport network company. I hope you've already seen the pre-scene when you're looking at this webinar to success on my YouTube channel. You've already gone over the pre-scene, which is around the ride-hailing company, and something pretty easier understandable because we're all familiar with scenarios around Uber and Careem or any sort of ride-hailing services we have in respective countries, and we're all customers of such ride-hailing companies. So probably understanding the scenario around Diego is not very difficult, but building familiarity around it is important. ACCA pre-September 24 mock, that is the 7th paper, because you already see the 6 papers on top, followed by this 7 papers under the time management of 195 minutes. Apart from this, technical articles. There are 11 technical articles, which to me are important. They could be important because they have some sort of a connection with Diego, the pre-scene case, or they must be important because they cover the subject matter, which are very favorite of the examiner. And examiner love to put a question around them on a very frequent basis in SBL. Responsible leadership. I would prefer that you read through it, at least brush over it. I'll be telling you the way to read an article. If you are reading them now over the next 10 days, you have not done them before. So what is the best strategy to go through these 11 articles? But let's first look at the list of 11. Responsible leadership under the syllabus area A. Environmental and sustainability issues under the syllabus area B. Integrated reporting framework under the syllabus area B. Strategic planning process, part 2, not part 1. I'm not recommending part 1 in the last 10 days. I'm recommending part 2 because part 2 is more important. It has more of the important models, which looks more important against the pre-scene case, which has been released in. Growing in partnership in syllabus area C, again, has some sort of a relevance and connection with the pre-scene case given in. 4 lines of defense and assurance mapping. We know risk management, mitigation of risk is a very important area of SBL exam. Examining team love to put questions around risk management almost in every single exam setting. Application of new technology, part 3, not part 1, not part 2, part 3. Part 3 has something about cloud computing. There is some relevance of cloud computing even in the pre-scene case for September 24, Diego, and there is some sort of a connection which could establish. Number 8, principles of e-marketing. There is some relevance to e-marketing even in Diego, and that has a strong connection why I'm putting this in my list of 11 articles. Cybersecurity, again, has relevance to the pre-scene, and I hope if you've gone through the pre-scene, you would have a sizable idea that there are cybersecurity issues surrounding Diego. I will be doing my own pre-scene for my students on the 25th of August, but again, that's for my paid student, and my pre-scene is not publicly available on YouTube. But if you have read through it, you will have a fair idea that cybersecurity article definitely have a connection with pre-scene. Number 10, e-commerce, again, has a relevance to pre-scene and again covers subject matter which are very repetitive in the SBL paper. And number 11, the Baldrige performance excellence model. We cannot rule out the Baldrige model. It is an important model. It is an important model in your syllabus of SBL, and we cannot just take a risk around it. Now, these are 11 articles where I would like you to spend time on over the next 240 hours. What is the best definition, best way to read an article? I think every article should not take more than 30 to 40 minutes, and you should read it in your idle time. When you're free from studies, you're sitting back, relaxed, you can have a printout of it, or you can have the PDF version on any of your laptop screen or mobile screen, and you're just scrolling over it for 30 to 40 minutes and just making notes of the key points or key pointers, and that will make your own summary of these 11 articles. Every day, you can spend time on one article. So even in 10 days, you can fit in 10 articles. So you just need to do 2 articles on a certain day, followed by 1 article each day, 30 odd minutes every day, and you're fitting this within as less time as possible. Okay, now moving on towards the next agenda. Now, from the study approach you are taking for the next 10 days, where I've guided you about the past papers, I've guided you about the mock exam, guided you about the pre-scene, and guided you about the 11 important articles you should be exploring in. Now let's look at some of the exam techniques. And the first exam technique I would like to discuss with you is optimizing the technical marks in SBL. We know 80% of the SBL paper is technical marks, but a lot of time the student does not have a sound definition of technical marks in SBL. In my next 10 minutes discussion from the examiner report, I try to take the best definition of technical marks and how you go about optimizing them, and more importantly, how you meet the expectation of the examiner. Now, this is coming right from the June 24 examiner report, and we need to assure that we're reading through this important document because that's the only way we are meeting the expectation of our examiner. Okay, let's look into optimizing technical marks. Demonstration of technical knowledge alone or explanation of the theory does not score any marks in SBL. I hope you have a clarity on that with your exam just 10 days away. I've seen a lot of students who try to quote or who try to explain alone the model, alone the theory, or they start with an introduction of a model. They try to give a bookish knowledge of the model before they come down linking it with the case. But examining team is telling us that alone knowledge, alone model, alone the theoretical knowledge is of no use in SBL till the time it is adapted, it is synchronized, and it is connected to the case scenario. So adaptation holds the key. How you change the model or change the theory in the context of the requirement or in the context of the case information, that holds the key. Now, moving further from this particular point, to gain each technical mark, candidate needs to, number one, make point that directly address the requirement of the task, considering the scope of the answer and what the task verb indicates. Is the task asking you to assess something, evaluate something, explain something? Because assess is more broad, right? Assess is probably where you're looking at the advantages and disadvantages or the pros and cons. Same goes with evaluation. You have to give a conclusion as well. Make points which are relevant to the task requirement. What is the task asking you? What is the scope of the task? Is this task asking you only a single thing, or is the task asking you more than one thing? You have to read the task very carefully. So every point you made, which is in accordance with the task requirement, which meets the scope of the task requirement, is a valid mark. Second, show the marker why the point you made is significant or relevant to the organization. So the point you're making has a connection with the organization, has a connection with Biego, for example, in September 24. So if you are making a point which has no connection with Biego or any characteristic of Biego, that is an irrelevant point. So try to justify that the point I'm making is important. It is important because it has an implication to Biego. It is important because it's a benefit for Biego. It is important because it has some sort of it will create some sort of an issue for Biego in the future. Or it is important because it's some sort of a threat for Biego. So it has to have a connection with Biego, otherwise it's irrelevant. Number three, consider issue that was specific to the points, choices, or decision detailed in the task requirement. When you're picking up the information from the exhibit, and you copy pasting the information from the exhibit while you're reading through it, ensure you're picking up the relevant information. You're copy pasting the relevant information, which you can develop later, which you can explain later, or which you can connect later with Biego. Any information which is just copy pasted and is not translated or is not connected with Biego, has no association with Biego, and it's just a standalone copy paste, that's not impressing the marking team. That's not fetching you the technical marks. So be assured you have a very sound, clear understanding of how you go about boosting your technical marks in SBL. That's not the end of the examiner perspective on technical marks. There is yet another slide on it. Furthermore, generally, up to 2 marks are available for a well-developed point. This is not my perspective. This is the examining team perspective written in the March-June 24 examiner report, that every well-developed point fetches you 2 marks. But to get those 2 marks, your point has to be well-developed. It should address the task requirement. It should address the scope of the task. The point should relate with Biego. The point has an association with Biego, either in terms of a threat or in terms of a risk, in terms of an implication, in terms of the consequences, in terms of a benefit, whatever. It depends upon the task requirement. So you are assessing every point in the context of Biego. And the more important thing is that each point should be well developed. First of all, a well-developed point is ideally, if you write a well-developed point, it's like 3 to 4 sentences long. If you're writing a point like a sentence and you put a full stop, I think a sentence in 2 is not the right depth, which makes the definition of a well-developed point. Probably you identify something from the scenario, you can take your first sentence. Then you elaborate upon that sentence. You might need 2 or 3 sentences to elaborate upon it, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. So in any case, you're reaching a definition of a 3 sentences or a 4 sentences as a well-developed point. And a sentence, again, is a point where you put a full stop. Sentence is not a line. Okay, generally, there are 2 marks for a well-developed point, but how could you gain it? However, candidates are reminded that 2 marks will only be awarded when candidate has successfully identified or explained a relevant point in the context of the case scenario or in the context of the requirement. Let's see what is the examining team telling us in terms of a well-developed point. How would you fetch those 2 marks? Number 1, evaluating how significant the point is. When you're explaining the point, you're telling this is an important point for Biego. This is a significant point for Biego because, and you try connecting it with something in Biego. So you might be explaining a benefit, you might be explaining a threat, you might be explaining a risk, you might be explaining potential consequences for stakeholder, you might be explaining a potential consequence on the reputation of the company, but there has to be a connection with Biego. Using the information provided that relates the point directly to the given organization. So every point has a relatability to Biego, to the given organization. If your point has no connection with Biego, your point seems like generic, has no connection with the case information, useless. Explaining the consequences we're asked for. If the requirement is asking for implications, consequences, try to spell them out, not journal consequences, consequences for the given organization. Supporting the point made with relevant examples from the case, not giving journal examples, not giving examples out of the case, but giving examples like such as, there could be something in the case and you want to relate that with the case and you say such as, for example, and you're relating something with the case information. There could be a statement of a person, there could be a perspective of a person, there could be something in the case which you say, for example, and you put that down. So that sort of a things also gives you a good blending with the case information, a good blending that you have, you're linking your point with the given organization in the September 24 paper like Biego. The last thing, in the June 24 paper, the examining team has given one example when they say well-developed point, what does it mean? A failure to develop point made was often evident in the exam June 24. This was particularly notable in the task 1B. You can go and check the June 24 paper, task 1B, for example, where candidates were required to discuss how technological development could deliver growth for PVS. Now, if you just alone answer technological developments and you journally write the technological developments, which are not even relatable to the case, not even identified from the case, that is one wrong definition. Or even if you pick up the technological developments from the case, you fail to relate how that development could deliver growth for PVS. How would the PVS get growth from that development? So if you are just writing about the development side, but you're not connecting it with the growth prospects for PVS, you're failing to impress the marker, or you're not writing a well-developed point. Because a well-developed point should have both the perspective, development and growth for PVS. Candidates were able to identify the aspects of the development that were beneficial, but they were unable to explain how they would enable growth for PVS. So that's the examiner perspective, that they did half the side of the requirement. They did the development side, but they were unable to relate the development side with the growth of PVS. That's what we are discussing for the last 5 minutes. That is what the examining team is looking for, a well-connected answer, connected to the task requirement, connected to the case information, and it has a strong link with the organization. If a point does not have a link with the organization, it seems like a journal point, a standalone point, and has no association with a given organization is useless. As in the previous settings, candidates often reproduce or repeated information taken from the exhibit with no attempt to add value. Copy paste. Students love copy paste. Copy paste is very, very good, but provided you add value to it. Copy paste is something you can utilize in the reading and planning time and can really help you in the writing time, provided you develop the point you have copy pasted. Alone copy paste is useless. So I hope this discussion in the last 10 minutes, optimizing technical marks, if you go through it and you take notes of it, would really help you improve your prospects of scoring better from the technical side in SBL. Now, the next agenda, optimizing professional marks in SBL. That's very important. 20 of them, 1/5 of the paper, 20% of the paper. What sort of techniques you can adopt to maximize your professional marks in SBL? Let's explore that. To optimize the professional marks, you need to do two simple things you can see in the flow chart. To optimize the PM, the professional marks in SBL, demonstrate two things. Number one, demonstration, journal professionalism throughout your answer. Number two, demonstrate the professional skill in the manner requested by the examiner. In the manner requested by the examiner, not the way you like to, or probably I've seen a lot of time the student just learn the meaning of a skill, that what does commercial acumen means, or what does evaluation means, what does analysis means. They just learn the meaning of the skill, and they're not reading the statement of the examiner about professional skill, that how the examiner want you to demonstrate that skill. And that's where you're not impressing the marker. So there are two elements of professional marks. One is the journal professionalism, which is to be demonstrated throughout the 100 marks paper. And one is the professional skill, which is to be demonstrated in the manner requested by the examiner. Let's explore one by one each one of them. First, let's start with demonstration of journal professionalism. Checklist of journal professionalism. Present the answer in the right format. So look at the format you need to present the answer in. Is it a press release? Is it a briefing paper? Is it a briefing note? Is it a report? Is it a section of the report? Do you need to make 2 presentation slides? What? Answer it in the right format. Number 2, break answer into headings and subheadings. You need to present your answer professionally. You are a strategic business leader. Every point needs to be split, broken down into headings and subheadings. That's also demonstrate clarity of communication. Clarity of communication itself is a professional skill in SBL. Avoid writing in lengthy paragraph. Once you have developed a point, change the paragraph. Don't write in like a paragraph of 6 to 7 sentences. Examining team don't like that. Ideal length of a para is 3 to 4 sentences. Full stop, move to the next point. Every point should start from a new paragraph. Don't just write too many points in one paragraph, which is useless. So that's important, right? Avoid repeating the same point in your answer. Even you're repeating the same point from a different perspective in the answer. Don't even do that. Try to write every point. Every point in your answer should be unique. It's not like you're writing the same point 2 times in the answer, even though you have a different perspective to that. Give conclusion where necessary. So wherever the examining team is asking for something like evaluate or assess, try to give down your conclusion. Or when you're evaluating the suitability of something, or you're evaluating whether the strategic option is valid, is viable for the company, something like that, you need to give down a conclusion. So conclusions are necessary as part of your journal professionalism in the paper. Avoid a lone copy paste, because that's not sending the right message to the marker, and that's against journal professionalism, that you're just dumping information and not making any utilization of that. So this is the checklist around journal professionalism. Try to follow that strictly across your 100 marks paper as part of your 20 professional marks. Now comes the second demonstration of the professional skill, PS, as requested by the examiner. Now, I'll be doing an exercise on that shortly. I'll be taking you to the practice platform and we'll do an exercise on it. But demonstrating the professional skill as requested by the examiner, let's see how you can excel on this. You are aware that SBL consists of 5 professional skills, and each of them will be tested for 4 marks in your SBL paper. We know this change has come since September 23, that each skill will be tested, and each skill weightage will be 4 marks. There will not be repetition of skills, and as it used to be before the September 23 exams. So each skill, 5 skills multiplied by 4, 20. There isn't any rote learning of these professional skills. I've seen students learning the meaning of the skill and expect you will score marks easily just by knowing the meaning of the skill. This might be helpful. Look at my second statement in the bullet number 2. This might be helpful in some cases. I'll show you examples of that shortly. This might be helpful in some cases where you know the meaning of the skill, but not in all cases, because you need to read the statement of the examiner, that in what manner the examining team wants you to demonstrate the professional skill. That is more important. And I'll show you that is given under every task. You need to read it, you need to understand it, and you need to apply it in the same manner to impress the marker. Sometimes the meaning of the skill might help you down. I'll be showing you example of that as well. You need to read through the professional skill statement under each task to understand how it should be demonstrated. Demonstrating it in the way requested by the examiner will help you fetch these marks, as you're meeting the examiner expectation, which will impress the marker. But if you're trying to demonstrate a skill in a manner which makes you happy, useless. But if you're demonstrating a skill in a manner which makes the examining team happy, you are impressing the marker and you're fetching most of your professional skill marks. Let's take some example of this demonstration. Journal professionalism is a more easier thing. I hope you can stick to that. If you follow the checklist, you will adhere to the journal professionalism. But demonstration of professional skills, 5 skills, each of 4 marks, how you go about it, how you demonstrate it in the manner which is requested by the examiner, and do the meaning of the skill help you. Let's take an example of that. Let me take you back to the practice platform for the June 24 paper, March-June 24 paper. I hope you can see that on your screen, which was around PVS as an organization. Okay, just let's open up the task 1. And you go over the task 1, and the task 1 is telling you right over here. I'm not reading everything. I'm just reading the task just to demonstrate how you need to go down it. Now you read from here, the BD director, which is the business development director, has asked you for the help in addressing the issue raised by CEO. Prepare a briefing note. So you're very sure that I have to put my answer in the format of a briefing note for the BD director, which assess the impact of the joint venture on the PVS brand and the extent to which PVS service features would be delivered. So what will be the potential impact of joint venture on the PVS brand? So if you just talk about Journal impact of joint venture, just like we're discussing in the technical marks, is of no use. But if you connect the impact of the joint venture on PVS brand, that's where the technical marks are fetching in. And the extent to which PVS service features would be delivered. So what will be the impact of the joint venture on the PVS brand and to extent of which the service features would be delivered? That's where the focus has to be. But understand the scope of the answer. We were discussing this in the technical marks. Is the examining team only asking for the impact of joint venture on PVS, the brand of PVS, service features of PVS, or is they asking for something more? After the full stop, they say recommend whether a franchise agreement would be better than a joint venture. Two things. One is the impact of the joint venture on PVS, and one is to recommend whether a franchise agreement is better than joint venture or not. Recommend. So you need to reach a conclusion. Do you believe joint venture is good or a franchise is good? You have to give your conclusion at the end of the day because you are assessing. Assessing means to conclude something. Now you have 14 marks. At times, you don't understand the depth of the scope. If you read twice, the scope is very clear. The scope is covering two things, not one. And then you have the professional marks. Professional skill marks are available for demonstrating evaluation skill. So examining team wants you to demonstrate the evaluation skill in a manner requested. Let's see what is the manner in which this evaluation skill is to be demonstrated. In assessing the issues in relation to the joint venture raised by CEO. So you have to assess the issues around joint venture raised by the CEO. So you go to the specific exhibit where the CEO has raised some concerns or some issues around joint venture. You need to assess each of that issue and you need to talk about the potential impact of each of that issue on PVS brand and on the PVS service feature. But any student who does not assess the issues which the CEO has highlighted about joint venture, you're writing about journal issues of joint venture, useless. And you're not even bothered about connecting those issues with the PVS brand and the PVS service feature, useless. So who will score the evaluation marks? The one who demonstrate the issues which has been highlighted by the CEO. And you try to discuss the impact of each of that issue on PVS brand. So is the examining team giving you how to demonstrate? Yes. So see the yellow and green. The yellow is the skill. The green is how to demonstrate. Follow that. Put the answer in the right format. Follow the journal professionalism. Demonstrate the skill the way it should be demonstrated. Now over here, the definition of evaluation is not helping you because the examining team is telling us in the green how it should be evaluated. Take another example. You go down in the next task. Prepare 2 presentation slides. So the format this time is 2 presentation slides for which you have a separate response area. 2 presentation slides for the board which discuss. Number 1, how technological development could deliver growth for PVS. We were just discussing that in the criticism of the examiner, that a lot of times the student discussed the development, but they didn't connect it with how the development will deliver growth for PVS. So that's where things, that's how you start losing marks in SBL. Either you're not doing the right coverage of the scope, or you're partially answering the requirement, you're not fully answering the requirement. Just like in the question above, you might be answering the joint venture part, you're not answering the franchise part. So over here, you have to answer the technological development part along with how it deliver growth for PVS. And then you can see the word and. So the requirement is breaking further. And the drawbacks for PVS, not journal drawbacks, the drawbacks for the given organization, including ethical issues, not journal ethical issues, the ethical issues for PVS of adopting such technological development. So when you talk about ethical issues, they need to be connected with PVS. So when you adopt these technological developments, what sort of ethical issues will come to PVS of the adoption of the technological development? And what will be the drawbacks which you might face as an organization because of this technological development. You have 16 marks. You need to make 2 presentation slides. Now let's look at the skill. Professional skill marks are available for demonstrating communication skill. So this time you need to demonstrate the communication skill. Let's see, is the examining team telling us the manner in which it should be demonstrated? In informing the board of technological development and how technological development could deliver growth and drawback, including ethical issues of adopting such technologies. Now, any student, while he is writing the presentation on the 2 slides, any student whose answer has a strong focus on drawbacks, any student whose answer has a strong focus on ethical issues, and any student whose answer has a strong focus on delivering growth. 3 important things. How technology will deliver growth for PVS, number 1. How will the technological development have a drawback for PVS? And what ethical issues will PVS face as a result of the technological advancements? 3 things. But if you're generally writing about technological developments, you're generally writing about how technological development would generally impact an organization, useless. So communication means clarity. Communication means that the person you're trying to communicate it on the subject matter he wants you to communicate on. So if a person is asking for that, I want your communication to be on ethical issues, on delivering growth, on drawbacks, but if in your communication I fail to get any of those replies, it's an irrelevant communication. If I'm conducting an SBL webinar and I'm talking about a journal subject matter, not SBL, my webinar is useless. So please ensure you read the skill statement followed by the manner in which it should be demonstrated. Every time the examining team will give you that. If you stick to that, you follow that, and you also avail the checklist of journal professionalism, honestly, you're scoring something like 14 to 15 easily out of the 20 professional marks, and which significantly boost your prospects of passing the SBL paper. So I hope you will continue on with this exercise right across the June 24 paper about professional skills. You will do the same yourself for the remaining tasks 2 and 3, just the way I have guided you in the last 10 minutes or so. So I hope you're sound and clear on professional skills and how they need to be demonstrated. I hope you will do better off and you will do some more exercise on it. Okay, time management now, another skill. Since September 23 exams, the time management has changed. We now have 195 minutes, even though I've reinforced that since September 23, almost in every of my webinar I have done on YouTube. I just want to reinforce it again because it's now 1 year since this time management was introduced. You're appearing for September 24 exams, and this time management came in September 23. You now have 195 minutes in SBL since September 23. And be assured you have practiced plenty of past papers around 195 minutes. How many I've given you? 7, including the mock. So 7 papers, including mock, you can excel this 195 minutes time management. Fewer tasks to attempt. You know, you now have 3 tasks in the paper, and fewer exhibits to read on the day of exam. You just have 4 exhibits to read on the day of exam, and each task specifically connects with a certain exhibit. It's not like you're reading all the exhibits to find the answer for task 1A. No, task 1A will have a specific exhibit. And the clue of that will be in the intro paragraph of the task. Yes, at times it's possible that 1A is connected with exhibit 1, 1B is connected with exhibit 2. At times it even happened that exhibit 1 is giving you the answer for task 1A as well as 1B. I think that's the case with the June 24 paper, where we were looking at the 2 requirements, 1A and 1B. Both were connecting with the exhibit number 1. But that is an easier part of SBL now. Fewer tasks, fewer exhibits. One task connects with 1 exhibit, and that makes your life easier. And that's where 195 minutes time management becomes more beneficial for students. So all this adds positively to the time management. 1/4 of your total time you have in exam is for reading and planning. I have given you just some examples when we were discussing optimizing technical marks and then taking some illustrations on the practice platform. How important is it to read? Because at times you are not fulfilling the scope of a task, because a task might be asking you 2 things or 3 things and you're answering one. Even in the presentation slide, they were asking us 3 things: how the technological development delivers growth, number 1, ethical issues, number 2, and drawbacks, number 3. If you're just answering one of them, 2 of them, we're not doing justice. So reading and planning is important, because that will really help you ensure that you're fulfilling the wish of your examiner. Please ensure you double check when you're reading the requirements to ensure you're not doing any mistakes. And that's where the time has to be spent on reading and planning. Within the reading and planning time, you need to copy paste the information from the exhibits, put it down on the word processor. So once you start the writing time, everything is dumped on the word processor, and you can easily execute an answer by developing those copy paste points well connected with the given organization. 3/4 of the total time is to be spent on writing the answer. But if you have done a good investment in the 1/4 time, you will see a improvement of the quality of your answer in the 3/4 time. But if you have not invested seriously on 1/4 time, you might be blank when writing the answer, you might be confused when writing the answer, or probably you don't know what to write. So 1/4 leads to 3/4, right? So the investment there is important. 195 minutes divided by 100, simple, 1.95 minutes per mark. So you look at a task in exam, the task might be of 30 marks, 38 marks. So 38 marks or 30 marks multiplied by 1.95, you get the total time. Of that total time for the task, 1/4 is for reading and planning, 3/4 is for writing. So you can determine that time for each task looking at a formula of 1.95 minutes per mark. Okay, some journal guidance around pre-scene. I hope by the time you are watching this webinar, you must have gone over the pre-scene, but I just want to make something very clear around pre-scene, that you are not doing these errors when you are going over the pre-scene. And this is again from the examiner report. Pre-scene, things to avoid. When preparing for pre-scene material, here are some key things to avoid. Number 1, extensive additional research. Stay within the pre-scene given to you by the examiner. So if the pre-scene is of 11 pages or 12 pages, just stay within that. No need to get to the Google. No need to get into additional research around the ride-hailing company like Biego. Just stick to the information given to you by about the industry, about the organization in the case of the September 24 pre-scene, not going beyond it. Speculation, don't speculate anything, right? Don't speculate this will come, that will come. No, don't try to do the guess game of the syllabus areas which might be covered, which might come on the day of September 24 exams. Not at all. Last minute reading. Don't just read the pre-scene for the first time 2 days before the exam or a day before the exam. Start reading it in the last 10 days before exams. Normally, a tutor do a debrief a week before exams. I will be doing it on Sunday, 25th of August, exactly a week before exams. But I normally give my students 7 days to read them on their own, because it is released 14 days before exams. So if you are reading the pre-scene for the first time 48 hours before the exam, you might not build the right familiarity, or you might not absorb the pre-scene very well. But if you're reading it gradually over the last 7-10 days, and you're giving some time every day to pre-scene, not absolute time, you're gaining familiarity in a more organized manner. Things will start coming to your fingertips, and you will start to retain more about Biego. Neglecting other study areas. You're just giving time to pre-scene. You do have 240 hours, and the entire 240 hours you're giving to pre-scene. You're trying to do everything in pre-scene. You're spotting the question, you're speculating the question, you're trying to get what can come out of it. You're wasting your time. You should revise, you should do practice, you should do the mock exams, you should read the 11 technical articles along with the pre-scene. I think pre-scene just need 30 to 40 minutes every day, max. Question spotting, just like speculation. Avoid trying to predict specific questions. Yes, a tutor might be sharing some based upon his experience, his relevance, his expertise with SBL. He might be teaching SBL for last 5-6 years. He knows a lot about SBL. In that case, those have become the market norms. But as a student, please refrain from that. Okay, importance of examiner report, June 24. I would only recommend you to read the June 24 examiner report. And that is part of my 10 days agenda, which I've given to you. Only one. You just need 60 odd minutes. Sit down, take a printout. Whenever you have an idle time, sit back and relax and just read it like a story. Even if you can manage to get some 10-15 points out of the examiner report why the student failed, and you just put them down with a pen and paper that these are 15 reasons or 20 reasons the student failed the SBL exam. Wonderful. But first, do the June 24 paper yourself, PVS. Write an answer. After you've written the answer, keep your answer on the screen and keep the examiner report in a printout form, or keep your answer in a printout form and the examiner report on the computer, whatever suits you. And try reading the examiner report for the task 1A and see you have done the task 1A. Now, examining team will tell you this was done good by the student in task 1A, this was done bad by the student in task 1A. See how it relates to your task 1A answer. If the examining team is telling you this is how the student did bad, was that bad in your answer? Good? Is that good in your answer? Keep a red pen and a green pen. Wherever you find a bad and that bad is in your answer, put a cross with red pen, circle it. When you find a good and that good is in your answer, green tick, green tick. You will learn that way. You will self-evaluate your script. You will learn now, because ignorance is disastrous. You are sitting in the real exam on the 3rd of September and you have not read the June 24 examiner report. You have no idea of the weaknesses. You have no ideas of the issues, and you're doing the same. You're doing the same issues. Ignorance is disastrous. You have 10 days. Read it, just 1 hour, and you will be amazed. But you have to have your June 24 paper with you on the table or on the screen. And you need to have the June 24 examiner report, task 1A, 1B, 2, 2A, 2B, and you're reading it and relating it with your answer and learning. Make a summary at the end of the day that these are the do's and don'ts, and try to make a powerful impact on the 3rd of September. Investing in the examiner report. Examiner reports are crucial for exam preparation. But having said that, students are least bothered about it. They think this is the least important resource. They're not even bothered about downloading it, going through it, not at all. The examiner report highlights the common mistakes in every task and journal mistakes the student do across the technical marks and professional marks. You can learn a lot from that. Understanding expectations. They provide insights into what examiner is looking for. They even give you what you can do for the future exam to improve in. They can give you that this is what we are looking for. So you can get to know the expectations of the marking team, that this is what they're looking for to make me pass. So you can you can just make a bullet points for expectations, mistakes, guidance on answering techniques. They even tell you that this is the way to answer. They even give you example of how this could have been written. So you can learn from that how to develop a point. So it's such an insightful document. Performance feedback. They give you an overall performance feedback on every question, overall exam setting about professional and technical marks. You can learn a lot from that. I hope you're willing to invest 60 minutes out of the 240 hours you have, and you will be spending time on mistakes, expectations, techniques, and feedback. You will learn through that, and you will excel in your mock exam, and you will excel in your real exam on the 3rd of September. I hope this discussion around the September 24 exams for SBL would largely benefit you, and you will gain some confidence over the next 10 days to excel in the upcoming exam. The last thing to wind up this webinar is to look into the key tips to excel in SBL. Key tips. Here are some key tips to excel in the Strategic Business Leader exam, which we've covered over the last 40-45 minutes. Just a summary of that so that it gets reinforced. Number one, understand the case context, because you have to write an answer in the context of the case. You should have a familiarity with the pre-scene, but pre-scene is not the 100% of the answer. You can quote pre-scene where necessary, but at times the student unnecessarily quote the pre-scene as if the pre-scene is the answer. The answer will come from the exhibits on the day of exam. You need to involve yourself in the exhibits on the day of exam, and your 90% answer or 95% answer will come from the exhibit. There might be some relevance where you might need to quote or put the pre-scene information on a spontaneous basis, but there's no forceful application of the pre-scene. So context, Biago, September 24 exams. Your answer should be around Biago. You should relate with Biago. So understand the case context. So the more you sync your answer, the more you adapt your answer, the more you link your answer, the better you are. Effective time management. I've already spelled that out. You know how to utilize the 195 minutes. I hope you will go down with it and complete 100% paper. Answer the task set. We just saw that. Answer the task set, because within every task set, there could be multiple things being asked in. We just took an example of 1A and 1B, and in every of those tasks, there were multiple things. So try to read it twice to know that you're answering the scope of the task set. You're not partially answering the task set, rather you're fully answering the task set. Develop point thoroughly. We did discuss about that today. We did discuss about optimizing technical marks. We did discuss about a definition of a well-developed point, what makes the definition of a thoroughly developed point. I hope you will follow these steps to excel upon in your upcoming exams. Top avoidables to pass SBL. What should you be avoiding? Copy pasting, just alone copy pasting and not making any use of it. And you believe that just copy pasting will impress the marker that I've written such a long answer. Useless. Lack of application. You copy paste, but you're not developing. You're not explaining. You're not applying the context of the case. Poor analysis. You're not analyzing the information in the context of Biago, in the context of the problems, threats, issues, reputation, threats of Biago. You're not relating it with Biago. Irrelevant content. You're writing an irrelevant content, which is generic. You're just generic content. You're just writing models, definition of models. You're writing journal benefits, journal disadvantages, journal pros and cons. No relevance to Biago, no application to Biago. You're not doing justice to you. You're failing the SBL exam. So I hope this webinar, when you listen to it, you take notes of it, and you try to implement this in the next 10 days, would largely benefit you for your upcoming SBL exams. So this is your tutor, Kashif Kamran. I'm signing off from the SBL September 24 webinars and wish you all the very best of luck for your September 24 exams on the 3rd of September. Take care. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.